that's what's happening. Our debt, if you look from a historical perspective, owning another country's debt as an asset is a pimple worth of time and the whole scale. Gold and silver and commodities is wealth, and I think, and have been for thousands of years. And I think because of the sanctioning and the aggression and the confiscation of treasuries and of dollars, the rest of the world has had it. Not only that, I think it's become very evident that we are a country that is addicted to spending and have a real problem with our fiscal policy. And we are creating $1 trillion in debt every 100 days. Why would anyone want to hold our treasuries? We have chosen publicly, visually, inflation over austerity. Why would anyone want to hold our treasuries when they're being inflated away and when they're being sanctioned away? And so it just makes no sense. And I think one comment I said on your show and others for a long time, and it's even becoming more ingrained in my head when I think of it, is that commodities are the glue that makes all these other countries stick together. All of these other, the pushback is who's going to trust China? Who trusts us anymore? It's the commodities that pulls the word trust out of it. Fine, we trade in local currencies, but any excess, we settle in gold. That's the deal. We settle in silver. We settle in oil. These commodities are changing the landscape. He who has the commodities makes the rules. Period. They've been playing by our rules for a very long time. The United Kingdom put out a piece not too long ago saying, geez, we've really put ourselves at the mercy of other countries because we don't have the natural resources we need. And whether it's rare earth metals or oil or precious metals or grain, whatever the commodities are, you can see a common denominator. Look what we've done to ourselves with energy and all of the uranium and all of these things that we've mothballed or just neglected. These countries are jumping all over it. And when you talk about wanting to own treasuries, why would anyone want to own treasuries from a country it's broke, insolvent, and going around the world imposing sanctions? A country that's lost its bearing here at home. All of these things, they're all interconnected. And it's almost going back to it like we're trying to make this happen. I mean, either that or our politicians, our leaders are so stupid it's ridiculous, because you can see how these countries have quietly said, listen, we don't want to hold the treasury anymore. We don't want to be beholden to them. Let's all just start trading with ourselves, and we will settle in commodities and remove the trustless situation. We will inspire confidence and trust and begin to trust one another through delivering of commodities. And I think that's exactly what's happening. And so why are the Chinese bailing out the commercial banks? Because the commercial banks, I think, still offer something to the East that they want. And there'll come a time when they won't bail them out either. But there's some deals that are being struck that we don't know of in this opaque landscape. But I can assure you that this is not an act of benevolence. There is a quid pro quo going on in the back rooms that we don't know about.
Gosh, there's a lot to talk about here. I was going to touch on when you talk about this arbitrage opportunity. That's the simplest thing to see between the East and the West. You can also look at it before a merger and acquisition. It's often the norm for the party that's doing the acquiring to offer a premium to try to entice the shareholders to give up their shares to make the deal go. To a premium above what the market is paying. And sometimes it's huge, 10%, 20%. 25%, whatever. And suddenly the closed on Friday at, X dollars, and it opens up Monday at X plus 25% because there's a premium available due to this leading indicator of what's going to be happening. The new regime is being revealed, and everybody realizes, oh, okay, the whole playing board just shifted. And then, just in case you want to go with it, the other thing is you talked about trustless ability for disparate parties to get along because if they don't trust each other, at least they trust the real asset. They trust the commodity or they trust the metal. And we've seen that we're approaching less and less reason for justifiable trust. I mean, we've talked about the United States, the full faith and trust of the United States government, the confidence in the United States dollar and all that sort of thing. When you look at all of the insanity that's been coming out of officialdom for the past decade at least, as far as turning reality upside down, calling things the opposite of what they are, and basically rigging the system so that we know that we're not hearing the truth from official sources anymore in many, many, many areas of our lives, then if we're entering an era of reduced trust, then is it going to be, in fact, the things that are real, the things that are true, that are going to be trusted? And unfortunately, fallen human nature being what it is, liars gonna lie. People need to be wary of scams and illegitimate products and illegitimate dealers and things like that if they're trying to acquire real assets. You and I have talked about that before, but people, please, please, please keep your eyes open and make sure that what you're going to be acquiring, if you're looking for real assets, if we're going to be trusting in the assets rather than in counterparties, you got to make sure who you're dealing with and make sure you're getting the real thing. And then the last thing was about exhaustion stage of empires. David Morgan has talked to us about that. If you haven't seen the video, folks, the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse documentary, just type 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse documentary. Take a look at it. It was made over 10 years ago, but it will knock your socks off if you haven't seen it in terms of this stage that we're living in now, the exhaustion stage of the empire. The Romans had their golden circuses. You talked about lack of austerity on the West, just throwing funny money at whatever cause just to try to curry and pander and get political support just to preserve a little bit longer your tenuous grasp on control. And then the last thing was this exhaustion stage of empires. We've seen this playing out over the centuries. You mentioned England acknowledging, the UK acknowledging that they're at a disadvantage in this new era because they don't have the natural resources. Neither do a lot of the Western countries. So the 350-year flirtation with the colonialist expansion of all these European empires that didn't have sufficient natural resources. They went all over the world, Africa, South America, everywhere, North America, basically taking over all these countries, colonializing them and pillaging the natural resources. And then we saw right after World War II, this wave went around the world of liberation, these countries declaring their independence from these empires. And now is this finally the last gasp for all of these countries that realize they can stand on their own feet with their own resources, their own ability to produce real things, are going to rise up and say, no more.
Well, and how's that happening too? Look at the Belt Road Initiative. I mean, I don't care there's always going to be people say, oh, China's indebting these countries. And maybe, but they're doing it in a cooperative manner. Do you see China? Look, China's not perfect. Okay. They're not. And, let's just take Taiwan out of the equation. I mean, because I don't think the people in the West truly understand the dynamics between China and Taiwan. But do you see China having military bases all around the world? Do you see China doing things all around the world with coercion and sanctions? No, they are in a cooperative manner emulating kind of what the Western countries did for 300 years, but they're doing it cooperatively. They're going around and expanding and allowing these countries to stand on their own 2 feet by building the infrastructure that allows them to do this. And so say what you want, everyone needs a hand somewhere, and there is no perfect way of doing it. But in my mind, the way that China has done it has inspired a much greater sense of loyalty and cooperation. Even the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Belt Road Initiative is not something to be ignored. I've talked about that with you for going on 4 years, and it's not. And this all fits together. And they're putting all of this together in a cooperative manner, and they are using commodities. Zoltan Pozsar was dead on right in 2020 that we are entering a new system that's all about commodities, and that's exactly what it is. And they are becoming worth more than currency. No one wants the dollar that is ultimately going to die. Yeah, they have to take it. They have to use it to get out of their debt positions or because it's still the system or whatever it is. They don't want to. They have to. That's going to change. And that's why they are replacing their treasuries, which would be the first step in commodities, because there's your savings, and you can see very, very easily that especially gold has way outperformed the bond market with no counterparty risk for the better part of 26 years. If you just look at it or 25 years, just go back to the beginning of the century. So look, I believe this in my soul that this is happening. And I think you can, if you look closely, and you don't even have to be the smartest guy in the world. I'm not, to see the crumbs that are being laid here. And they're using, and I've been saying it forever, they've been using the suppression of the Western markets to accumulate, and that's exactly what they're doing. And now they've got a situation where that suppression could quickly blow up the whole system. These Western banks who are naked short, whether it be through naked shorting ETFs, as Jeffrey Curry told us, because that's not their silver to be shorting. So that's naked. Or just to be creating massive amounts of naked short positions. Okay, fine, we'll stand for delivery. And when all of a sudden there's the inability to deliver, that's when the whole thing, just like that, goes upside down. When everyone runs, gimme, 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 and the whole thing blows up. And that's when the West loses its ability to control price completely, as the new exchanges in Shanghai and Dubai and Moscow and across the globe, the countries who produce it all, who accumulate it all, and have been accumulating it copiously for years, will set the real price. That's when things really change. What does it look like here then? Haven't given that enough thought. My mind kind of goes fuzzy when I get there. But I'm sure there will come a time where I have no choice but to give that a lot of thought. Right now, I'm just basically feeling that we're heading down that path with a great deal of inevitability.